Hey tribe, welcome back. In this video, we're going to discuss how Abdullah trained Neville Goddard. And first and foremost, this isn't going to be a cliche video. This is actually how Abdullah trained Neville Goddard. This is Abdullah's teachings. This isn't the cliche of you're just teaching Neville Goddard. And this is what most people do. When they talk about Abdullah, they're really just teaching Neville Goddard what Neville Goddard taught, but not really what Abdullah taught. So this is what we're going to discuss in this video. Now, before we get to that, if you want to be part of the tribe, the link is in the description. If you want to work with me, the link is in the description as well. And anything that relates to this video, it will be in the description as a follow-up for you. Okay, let's jump into this. Now with Abdullah, we're actually going to dive into Abdullah. He was really the master of esoteric Bible interpretation. So this is what I mean. Right now, when we go into this, I really want you to set aside your religious beliefs. I really want you to set aside kind of what you believe, because that will kind of open your mind. Because what Abdullah did was Abdullah taught the Bible by law, by laws of the universe, by the laws of God. He didn't teach the Bible as history, how we're actually taught today. And this is one of the things that Neville really pointed out with Abdullah, is that Neville said that when he first met Abdullah, Abdullah understood the Bible way more than anybody that Neville met in his entire life. And this is coming from Neville, meaning that Neville grew up Catholic. He grew up very religious. He grew up going to church. His grandparents were very, very religious. So Neville kind of really understood the Bible, but he kind of understood it how we all understand it today, by kind of the history of the Bible, but not from a higher consciousness, not from, and this is what I mean by Abdullah was a master of esoteric Bible interpretation. So lo and behold, let's dive into this. So in the beginning here, really keep up with me, because we have to kind of go through some definitions, what we mean by esoteric Bible interpretation, what it really means, and until we really get to the meat and potatoes, what Abdullah really taught. So we're going to have some fun with this. This is going to be an excellent lecture, an excellent video for you kind of walk away with when you're trying to manifest, you're trying to master manifestation, you're trying to master your identity, you're trying to master getting your dream house, your dream car, your dream job, your dream career. You want to be a multi-millionaire. This is really going to shift you. Okay, so pay attention. Let's get through some of these definitions, and we'll get right into the meat and potatoes of what we're here for. Now, esoteric Bible interpretation is reading the Bible not as literal history. So remember, this is what I said. Okay, we're not reading the Bible as history and we're taking it literal, but as a symbolic map of your inner world, where every person, place, and event represents the state of consciousness. Now this, what we have to understand is this was the heart of Abdullah's teachings. This is what Abdullah really taught Neville right here. He really taught from esoteric Bible interpretation. So he really dug deep into the higher consciousness of the Bible. So what was the heart of his teachings? What does the heart of his teachings really mean? The Bible, how Abdullah taught, the Bible was a code book of consciousness, written in symbolic language for those with eyes to see. His teachings came from the mystery schools of the East and early Gnostic traditions, where the scriptures were decoded to reveal the soul's journey through states of consciousness. Now, as a side note here, we don't really know where Abdullah, who trained Abdullah, where he really got all his information. That's kind of really a mystery, but we can actually really break down what he really taught Neville. Now, what did Abdullah really teach Neville? And this is really the main question here. What did he really teach? Besides going on the cliche and just repeating what Neville Goddard taught with living in imagination creates reality. Okay, that's Neville's interpretation. Okay, not really Abdullah's interpretation. So let's dive into this. What did Abdullah really teach Neville? He taught Neville to read every figure, place, and event as a psychological and metaphysical symbol. So what he really means by this is he's really talking to and referring to the Bible. Okay, so he's taken the Bible and he's taken any person, event, or symbolic nature of the Bible, that there has to be a higher consciousness to it. Okay, lots of times when we read the Bible as history. We read the Bible from a point of a lower consciousness. We read the Bible, lower consciousness, what I mean is your 3D world, your five senses or lower consciousness. See, hear, smell, taste, touch. Okay, you're not using your higher faculties when you read the Bible. This is what Abdullah is really teaching Neville. So basically, Abdullah guided Neville to understand that the Bible was not history, but a multi-dimensional system of awakening, and that each person was a central character in their own spiritual epic. For example, 1, Christ. Now, Christ equals your imagination, and we'll talk about this later. 2, Moses. Now, when we talk about Moses here, Moses equals mental discipline, leading your consciousness out of bondage. And let's take this a step further here when we talk about Moses. Now, when we talk about Moses, we can talk about Moses in several different ways, but what about mental discipline? What about leading consciousness out of bondage? You see, Moses doesn't represent a historical man freeing slaves. He represents the inner voice of mental leadership that rises within you when you decide to stop being a slave to your outer conditions. Isn't that really, to me, isn't that really kind of outstanding? It's really amazing. Okay, when you kind of hear this stuff, this is where we're going to start getting into the meat and potatoes here. Let me read this one more time. Moses doesn't represent a historical man freeing slaves. He represents the inner voice of mental leadership that rises within you when you decide to stop being a slave to your outer conditions. What does that really mean, being a slave to your outer conditions? It means you're driven by your 3D world. You're driven by your five senses: see, hear, smell, taste, touch. Like what you see going on around you, you're a slave to it. Okay, if all you see is poverty, you're letting that sight of poverty affect you. You're letting all the noise around you affect you. And you're basically a slave to your circumstances, and you don't know how to get out of it. This is what he's talking about. Now, Moses appears every time you say, I don't care what I see. I choose to believe what I desire. Let me say that one more time. I don't care what I see. I choose to believe what I desire. When you discipline your mind and reject negative appearances of lack, fear, limitation, you're leading your consciousness out of Egypt, the state of bondage. You see, Moses is the mental gatekeeper that refuses to go back to fear. Isn't this amazing? Now, some of you might know the story of Moses. Like most of us know kind of the vague story of Moses. Some of us know it really, really well, and some of us know it vaguely. Now, what he's talking about here, the story of Moses, when Moses wanted to free the Israelites from slavery, from the Pharaoh at that time, because the Pharaoh had all of God's people in slavery. They worked, they basically worked them to death. And Moses stepped up, and that's basically when God did all the curses until the Pharaoh finally released all the Israelites to Moses. And when Moses was taking them, kind of leading them out of Egypt and trying to lead them out, he's walking down to the Red Sea, trying to go to the Promised Land. Basically, what was happening is all the people were complaining and murmuring. They were in fear because at the same time, even though the Pharaoh releases people, it got back to Moses and it got back to everybody that all the Pharaoh's men were chasing them down and was going to slaughter all of them. So when they were walking, they were basically murmuring and complaining and letting fear creep in. And they actually wanted to turn back and actually go back to slavery instead of walking to their freedom. So this is the same thing we do when we're trying to manifest. We're trying to manifest something simple. We're trying to manifest our dream car, our dream house, our dream job, our dream career. We get to a point where we let fear get in our way, and that fear is crippling. And that fear will lead you right back to your comfort zone, the same comfort zone you're flipping complaining about. So there's a strong connection between the story of Moses and manifesting. We do the same thing. It's just in a different scenario. This is what Abdullah is trying to teach here. Now, for example, let's do the third example here. The Red Sea, we're going to continue on with Moses here for a second. The Red Sea equals emotional resistance blocking the next state. Now, what is a Red Sea? What's an example of the Red Sea and manifestation? How does that connect? How does that connect in Abdullah's eyes? You see, the Red Sea isn't a body of water. It's the emotional wall between your current identity and the new one you want to enter. Isn't this flipping amazing? Like when I went through this talks loud to me right now, okay? Because I haven't done this type of video for a long time. Even for me, I love going through this stuff. I'll read it one more time to you. The Red Sea isn't a body of water. It's the emotional wall between your current identity and the new one you want to enter. You see, when doubt, fear, or but how shows up, that's your Red Sea. Crossing the Red Sea means moving forward in faith, even when emotions try to pull you back. It's the act of assuming the new state, abundance, health, love, even when your feelings scream otherwise. And when you move forward with conviction, the sea parts. Your emotional resistance give way to clarity and results. Okay, now let me tell you a story really quick about the Red Sea. Now, it's the same continuation when Moses freed the slaves and he freed all the Israelites. They're basically walking, and they're walking far, okay? They're flipping hiking for days, and they finally get to the Red Sea. And remember, the Pharaoh is not that far behind him. The Pharaoh basically changed his mind, and he sent him and all his troops are going after Moses and all his people, and they're going to slaughter him. And it got back to Moses that this is what's going on. And you picture this for a moment, is they're already murmuring, complaining when they're walking. They're already letting fear creep in, and they want to turn around and actually go back to slavery. But now when they're walking, they come up to the Red Sea, and the Red Sea isn't a little stream, okay? The Red Sea is like the size of a flipping ocean, okay? It makes sense? So when they come up to the Red Sea, they're flipping trapped. Okay, all they can see, we got to turn around and go back. We got to turn around and go back and beg for forgiveness, for the Pharaoh will not kill us. This is basically what they're thinking. They feel trapped. And this is the higher consciousness of the Red Sea, is because once they felt trapped, what the metaphysical meaning is about this is that when you still move forward, even though you feel worry, doubt, and fear, when you still move forward, that moving forward in faith and belief actually splits the Red Sea. And this is exactly what happened. When Moses still moved forward and when he still started to walk into the sea and he put his staff down, that's when the Red Sea split and they could walk directly across. Okay, now this is exactly the same thing in manifesting. This works exactly the same way. You don't sit there and wait for things to happen. You see, we're thinking backwards when we think about manifesting. We think like, well, I'll get my dream house when I have the money to get my dream house. I'll give the charities when I have the money to give the charities. I'll help out when I have the money to help out. I'll eat at my favorite restaurants when I finally have the money to do it. But you're thinking backwards. Okay, what you got to do, you got to start moving forwards. And once you move forwards, that's your Red Sea. That's when everything will be shown to you. The how will be shown to you, but it's only when you still keep on moving forward. Now let's move on to the fourth example, is the promised land. Now the promised land actually equals fulfilled desire and conscious awakening. Now what does the promised land really mean? What's really a good example of the promised land? You see, the promised land isn't a physical place. It's the state of being where your desire is already real. Your promised land is a state of being of your desire. What you believe to be true has already come. So in other words, your promised land, if you want your dream house, that's your promised land. If you want your dream car, that's your promised land. If you want to be a millionaire, that's your promised land. It's already real for you. That's your promised land. You just have to believe it. This is what it means. You enter the promised land the moment you feel gratitude and certainty for something that hasn't yet appeared in the outer world It's not about time, it's about embodiment. Let me read that one more time for you so you can really kind of get into this. You enter the promised land the moment you feel gratitude and certainty for something that hasn't yet appeared in your outer world. What does this mean? Is, for example, if you want your dream house, it hasn't yet appeared yet in your 3D world. Okay, obviously you're not living your dream house right now, but your promised land, once you see it in your imagination, it has to come to you. Okay, and how it comes to you is because you're grateful for it and you're certain for it. Certainty. You know you want it. You're not backing down. You're not backing down in fear. You're not running back to your comfort zone. You're certain that's your promised land. And anytime you think about it, you're grateful that it's coming to you. That's really the power of gratitude and certainty. For an example, when Neville imagined being in Barbados with zero evidence and felt it as true, he entered the promised land. He didn't wait to arrive there physically. He arrived there in consciousness first. That's esoteric mastery, to dwell in the promise as if it were already fulfilled. Listen to this. This is where Neville Goddard gets the whole living in the end. Okay, listen to this. That's esoteric mastery, to dwell in the promise as if it were already fulfilled. You're dwelling in your dream house as if you already have it. You're dwelling in your dream car as if you already have it. You're dwelling in your dream career as if you already have it. And when we're talking about dwelling, I'm going to actually link a video down below in the description. It's called How to Dwell in the End. It's all by Neville Goddard. It's an excellent video I put together. It goes really deep on how to dwell within. So watch that video. I'll link it down below to make it easy for you. Now we're going to keep on having some more fun here. Now remember, like I said, we're going to go back to part 1 here. We gave the 4 examples and some examples where how esoteric Bible interpretation, what Abdullah really means by that. But we're going to flip back to part 1 and talks about Christ equals imagination. And that's your divine creative force. This is where we're going to really dive deep in this. We're going to have some fun, and let's get going. Let's dive into this. What he really means is Abdullah told Neville, Christ is not a man. Christ is your I am. This is where your I amness comes from. This is the meat and potatoes of your identity. This is the meat and potatoes of manifesting. This is your meat and potatoes that you can call the unseen until the seen. Okay, it's your I amness. This is where all the I am affirmations come from, is this core teaching right here. So remember, Abdullah told Neville, Christ is not a man. Christ is your I am. Your I am, your awareness of being. He didn't point Neville toward external salvation. He showed him how Scripture reveals the internal structure of creation. When Neville asked about resurrection, Abdullah replied that the tomb was not in Jerusalem, but in the unawakened mind. Resurrection meant realizing that your imagination creates reality, and that when you consciously rise into a new identity, you are enacting the biblical resurrection. Isn't that amazing here? Is like, because he's taken the resurrection in a whole different meaning. He's taken the resurrection. Remember, when you have your old identity and you want to move to a new identity, what he's really talking about is you have your identity right now. Okay, your old identity. And when you want your dream house, your dream car, you want to be a multimillionaire, okay, that's a more successful version of you. That's a more successful version of your identity. But this old identity cannot have your dream car. You have to switch. You have to move to your new identity. And that's what Abdullah means by your resurrection. It's getting away of your old and bringing in the new. That's when your mind becomes awakened. You become awakened to the power within you, the power that you have, the power of I am. Imagination as reality, the Christ within. What do we mean by that? Only after grounding Neville in symbolic interpretation did Abdullah teach that imagination is Christ. Imagination isn't simply visualizing a better life. It is the very substance of creation, the Word made flesh. Isn't it weird? Now, isn't it weird when God created the world, okay, he basically verbalized it. He said it. He said the commandment of I am. He created it with his words. Okay. And we do the same thing. And Abdullah is going to go super, super deep here. Okay. So let's continue. Abdullah explained, the outer world is simply your inner world made visible. Change the root and the fruit must follow. I love this. I'm going to read it one more time to you. Abdullah explained, your outer world is simply your inner world made visible. What you see right now in your outer world, what you see right now in your 3D world, all it is, it's coming from your inner world, your inner thoughts, your inner beliefs, what you murmur, complain about all day long. It's only being shown to you. It's really like the mirror effect. Okay. Your life is just a mirror. Okay. What's inside you is what you see on the outside. Okay. What's inside you is what? Your inner beliefs, your self-talking, what you're thinking about all day long. Most of us just think negative shit all day long. And that's what we see in our outside world. That's why Abdullah said this. Your outer world is simply your inner world made visible. Change the root cause, and the fruit must follow. Now let's kind of move on here and really talk about what is meant by the word made flesh. Okay, I want to dig deeper on this. What does he really mean when Abdullah says this, the word made flesh? No, we will always hear that our words have power. Okay, be careful what you think about, be careful what you say. But let's go deeper with this. What's really meant by this? The word made flesh, Abdullah taught that imagination is not a tool, it is the creator itself. This wasn't a metaphor to him. In esoteric Bible interpretation, the word is not verbal speech, it's consciousness impressed with feeling, clothed in assumption, and made visible in the world. Right there is how Neville Goddard came up with the law of assumption. It's right there in Abdullah's teaching. Listen to this one more time. In esoteric Bible interpretation, the word, our words, our thoughts, our talking, our self-talking, this is what he's talking about here, is not just verbal speech. We're not just thinking things random and it doesn't mean anything. We're not just saying things and it has no consequences. This is what he's talking about. It's not just verbal speech. It is consciousness impressed with feeling, clothed in assumption, and made visible in the world. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John chapter 1, verse 1. And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. John chapter 1, verse 14. Now with these two verses, Abdullah interpreted this as, in the beginning was consciousness. Consciousness imagined. That imagination took on form and became the world you now see. You see, Abdullah is really going back to the beginning of all creation. When God created the world, he first imagined it, then he spoke it into existence. We do the same thing all day long. Okay, if I want to make this cup of coffee that I'm not drinking right now, if I want to make this cup of coffee, well, really quick, when I think about the coffee, I've already imagined it. Even if it's 1 second, it's already in my mind and I actually go do it. We do the same thing. Okay, we want a dream house. It comes from our imagination. Then from our imagination, it becomes reality. But remember, our subconscious mind plays no favorites. Okay, our subconscious mind doesn't like you more than it likes me. Makes sense? Our subconscious mind just takes it as is. Whatever you give it, it gives you. If you give it negative, it's going to bring you back negative. If you bring it positive, it's going to bring you back positive. That's how this stuff works. Okay, it works. It's like a two-edged sword. Okay, think about it that way, positive and negative. It works both ways. It's going to give you something, okay, but you're in control of what it's going to give you. The word equals your imagination impressed with belief. Isn't it weird? Whatever you say, your word is impressed with your imagination. It's your imagination, but impressed with belief. The flesh is the physical manifestation of that belief. So your word, whatever you're thinking, whatever you say out loud, is going to become flesh, meaning that whatever you're speaking, that you're imagining it, no matter you're speaking or not, it goes inside your imagination, and it has to come into your 3D world. It has to come in your outer world. It has to by law. This is what we have to understand. Now, the word made flesh example, let's give some wonderful examples here, like what we mean. How do we really apply this? How do we get this to sink down into us? When you say, I am wealthy, I am healed, I am powerful, you are speaking as the Christ within. You are speaking as the Word becoming flesh. Remember, I am is the Christ within. That's your I amness. Whatever you attach I am to, this is why your language, your self-talk, how you talk out loud, how you talk to yourself, you have to be very, very careful what you put I am to. Because once you put I am to, that solidifies your identity. It has to happen in your life because you're putting it to an I am, your I am awareness. Abdullah showed Neville that when you imagine with conviction and feeling, you are not fantasizing, you are creating. So whatever you imagine, imagination creates reality. Whatever you imagine, whatever you talk about, and you hold it with belief and conviction, you are creating at that point. It's going to come into your life. Might not come right now, might not come tomorrow, might not come next month, but it will come. It will produce the fruits in your life. Now let's dig a little bit deeper. Let's talk about the discipline of the mind, the guarding the inner temple. Abdullah believed that the mind was the holy of holies. Every thought was a prayer. Every assumption was a commandment. His esoteric view saw the temple not as stone walls, but as the mental structure housing the divine thought. This is where we get your body's a temple. Your body's a temple of the Holy Spirit. Everything's a temple. And listen to what Abdullah was saying. Abdullah believed that the mind, our thoughts, what we murmur about all day long, in secret and out loud, was the holy of holies. Every thought was a prayer. Every assumption was a commandment. Every time you assume something to be true or false, positive or negative, that's a commandment. You're commanding it to happen in your life. He taught Neville that undisciplined thought was blasphemy because it denied the creative power of I am. Listen to this one more time. Abdullah taught Neville that undisciplined thought. What is undisciplined thought? It's like you're just thinking all day long. Okay, you're just letting your thoughts and your words wander. You think about anything and everything, and the scariest part is you think there's no consequences to thinking this way. So Abdullah taught that undisciplined thought was blasphemy. Why would he say blasphemy? It's because anything, remember, God is inside you. Christ is within you. The I amness is inside you. So if I amness is inside you, you are endowed with the powers of God. And if you're endowed with the powers of God, any type of unbelief, any type of worry and doubt is blasphemy. Any type of worry and doubt separates you from the power of God, separates you from God. That's basically really sin. And because it denied the creative power of I am. You're denying the power that you really have. You're denying the power that you really possess as a spiritual being. Now let's flip it back to Neville Goddard here for a second. And let's use kind of Neville Goddard's example of Abdullah. And I'll use some of his most famous examples. He talks about Abdullah. But one of the things in Neville's example here that I really want to point out is that Neville once said, "What if it doesn't work?" Abdullah stood up and walked out. "You're already in Barbados," he snapped. And when this happened, this wasn't ego, it was initiation. Abdullah trained Neville to see every doubt as a false idol, pulling worship away from the truth. Isn't that amazing? And let me clarify this example really quick. Though this is kind of Neville's famous example, this is when Neville, at the time he lived in New York, he lived in New York during the Great Depression. Neville was a dancer during the Great Depression. So he was broke during the Great Depression. He had no money because during the Great Depression, they didn't want to hire a dancer. Okay. So he was dead broke and he met Abdullah, and Neville wanted to go home to Barbados around the holidays, around the Christmas time, but he had no money. And Abdullah helped Neville set this intention. And Abdullah told Neville that, when you're walking the streets of New York, pretend you're walking the streets of Barbados. When you go to sleep at night in your bed in New York, act as if you're laying in your bed in Barbados. You're going to sleep in your bed in Barbados. So Abdullah helped Neville set this intention that he's traveling to Barbados. He's traveling to Barbados by ship, and he's going first class. And something really weird happened is, even though Neville set this intention, his brother actually sent him money to travel back home to Barbados. But his brother didn't know anything about what Neville was going through. He didn't know Neville set this intention. Neville never told him. Neville never begged for money. So his family didn't really know. So he just gets this check out of the blue from his brother to travel to Barbados. And he took this check to the ship, but that's how they traveled back then. I want to say airplane, but he traveled by ship. And they basically told him, well, we can take you back to Barbados, but you can't travel first class. You can travel, but you have to travel third class, because back then they had third class. But that didn't stop Neville. Neville was actually excited because he's like, I get to go home. Even though he set this intention that he went home and he traveled first class, he didn't care. He was like, dude, I get to go home. I don't care. I'll travel third class. So this is where this story unfolds, is Neville was super excited. He ran back to Abdullah and told Abdullah, I'm going to go home. I'm going to go home to Barbados, but I got to go third class, which is okay with me because I get to go home. But instead of Abdullah being excited, Abdullah was upset and yelled at Neville and raised his voice at Neville. And he told Neville this. He said, Neville, you were already in Barbados. You already were there and you went first class, period. And Abdullah turned his back on Neville, walked in his room, and slammed the door. You see, what we have to understand is this is what we do with manifesting. We doubt the process. We don't hold to our intention. Remember, once you set an intention, once you see it in your imagination, it already occurred. And this is what Abdullah was training Neville. Neville already was in Barbados and he went there first class. Period. End of story. You don't worry about it, how it's going to happen. You don't doubt the process. You don't change your mind. You don't limit your beliefs. You don't downplay your goals so you can go there. Neville went there first class, done, period. That's it. And guess what ended up happening? When Neville the next day went back to the ship, to board the ship, he was upgraded to first class. So he got exactly his attention, exactly what Abdullah said. But you have to pay close attention to this. As I want you to walk away with this, is that what you see in your imagination already occurred. It just didn't occur yet in your 3D world. It occurred in your 4D world. It has to mimic. Remember, you hold to your attention. This is what Neville even always said. You hold to your attention until it becomes reality, until it becomes a fact. This is what Abdullah was saying. This is why Abdullah said, this wasn't ego coming from Abdullah. It was initiation. Abdullah trained Neville to see every doubt as a false idol, pulling worship away from truth. And what do I mean by truth here? What is truth? And truth is this. When Abdullah trained Neville using esoteric Bible interpretation, truth represented far more than just abstract belief. In his teachings, truth is the unchanging law that God, I am, lives within you. And therefore, this is where we get the sayings. Abundance is your birthright. Creation is internal. God is inside you. Lack is an illusion. You see this lack, poverty, scarcity? It's all made up in your mind. It's an illusion. It's not real. You can change it. You can change it like that in your life. Your imagination is Christ in action. This is what you got to believe. This is real truth. And I'll say this one more time. The truth is abundance is your birthright. God isn't separate from you. Like we've been taught, like we've been taught in church, like we've been taught in Bible study, like we've been taught in preschool. We've been taught that God is external from us. God lives up in the clouds somewhere with the Care Bears. Okay. But in reality, God is already inside you. He's internal. Heaven is within you. God is inside you. The whole Holy Spirit is inside you. If God is inside you, this is the real truth. You are endowed with the powers of God. And this is why Abdullah said, lack, scarcity is an illusion. It's not real, but you're the one that makes it real. You're the one that makes it real in your life. So in this framework, truth equals the reality that God is within you, not outside of you. He's not sitting up in the clouds separate from you, living with a Care Bear somewhere. He's inside you. To worship truth, to trust your imagination over appearances. To know what truth is to trust what's inside you. Trust your imagination over appearances. What this means is your appearances, what you see around you, could be poverty, but inside you is wealth and riches. What's around you could be unhealth, could be cancer and disease, but inside you is health and wealth and prosperity. This is what it means. You're in control. You know what's inside you has to bear its fruit on the outside. To reject the truth is to bow to doubt, fear, and lack, which Abdullah always called these false idols. Your false idols isn't what you think. Your false idols is worry, doubt, and fear, and lack, and scarcity. These are false idols in your life. Because the reason why they're false idols is because when you worry about something, you're basically rejecting the truth inside you. You're rejecting that the power is already inside you. You can call the unseen into the seen. You're rejecting that because you're worried about it. You start doubting the process. You start letting fear creep in. And once fear creeps in, fear is crippling. Fear is what makes you want to run back to your comfort zone. Fear is what led the Israelites, when you start talking about the promised land, is your promised land is, when Moses, when they crossed the Red Sea, I think for 30 or 40 years, I might get this wrong as far as the years, for 30 or 40 years, they literally walked in circles when their promised land was right in the middle. And this is what we do when we're trying to manifest. Okay, our dream house is, if we knew how close we were to living our dream life, if we knew how close we were to living life on our terms, it's sitting right beside us. But worry, doubt, and fear controlling the how, we're literally just walking in circles around our dream car, around our dream house, around living life on our terms, around living a millionaire lifestyle. We're literally walking in circles around it. That's how close we are. This lines up with John chapter 10, verse 34. Jesus answered them, and Jesus was talking to all his disciples in this scripture. And Jesus answered all his disciples, "Is it not written in your law, I have said you are gods?" Jesus is telling his disciples, is it not written in your law that you are all gods? Jesus is calling his disciples that you are a God. Because you're a God because I dwell inside you. God dwells inside you. That makes you a God. That makes you endowed with God's power. And again in Luke chapter 17, verse 21, the kingdom of God is within you. And again, 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 16, don't you know that you yourselves are God's temple and that God's Spirit dwells in your midst? And again in Romans chapter 8, verse 11, the Spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead dwells in you. The same Spirit of God that rose Jesus from the dead dwells inside you. You have the same powers. Let's break this down. What is truth? When Abdullah said truth, he was pointing to the divine intelligence within you. The Christ consciousness that creates worlds through assumption, he trained Neville to stop looking outside himself and start ruling from within. You see, your power comes within you. It's from within out. And I know most of us have always heard this. It's from within out. It's not from outside in. It's from all your beliefs and your internal self-talk, what you're thinking. It's from within you going outside of you. So let's end it with this. Have you forgotten you are a Goddard? I love this. Have you forgotten you are a Goddard? And you might not know what I'm talking about right now if you lasted this long in this video. You see, one of the things Neville said, and Neville praised his grandma for doing this. Remember what I said. Neville was raised Catholic. He was raised his whole life very religious. His family was very religious. His grandma was very religious. And Neville said that anytime as a teenager, anytime he felt depressed, anytime he felt down, his grandma would always say, "Have you forgotten you are a Goddard?" And he always praised his grandma for reminding him the power he has. Have you forgotten you are a Goddard? And Neville took it a step further when he really dove deep into the law of assumption. Have you forgotten that Jesus Christ is inside you? Have you forgotten? You see, when we talk about this today, and even with myself, we have forgotten. We're a spiritual being, but we have forgotten the power that we really have. We have forgotten the power that possesses inside us. You have forgotten this, and I have forgotten this. Have you forgotten that Jesus Christ is inside you? Have you forgotten that God dwells inside you? Have you forgotten that you are endowed with God's powers? Have you forgotten that abundance is your birthright? Have you forgotten that abundance is infinite? Have you forgotten that you can call the unseen into the seen? You have forgotten all these powers that you possess. And when we flip this, God is inside you. Christ is within you. No matter what you believe on the outside, no matter what you believe on religious standpoints, if you just come to believe that you're a spiritual being, the Spirit of God is inside you. The Holy Spirit is inside you. Heaven is within you. If God is inside you, what does that mean? The truth is, abundance is yours. Abundance is your birthright. You can call the unseen into the seen. You can have anything you want. You can live life on your terms, and this is what it's about. You can live life exactly on your terms, do exactly what you want, live anywhere you want. You can have your dream house, your dream car, your dream job. You can be that multimillionaire. You can have $15 million in that bank. You can help anybody that comes to you for help if you choose to help them. You could be the king of your family. You can be the financial king of your family. You can have anything you want because you know you're endowed with God's power. You know that Jesus Christ is inside you. The power of God is inside you. And Jesus told all his disciples this, is, don't you know that all the miracles you've seen me do, all the miracles you've seen me perform, you can do as well, and you can do even more. And we just quoted this scripture, but Jesus himself called all his disciples. Don't you know that you are all God's? Because I dwell inside you. I am inside you. That makes you a God because you are endowed with my powers. What I can do, what you've seen me do, you can do as well and even more. This is the power that we have, and this is a power that we have to walk away from. Other than that, friends, tribe and YouTube family, let's wrap this up. I mean, that's really enough said. I can't say it any better than that. You know, coming from Abdullah himself, how Abdullah trained Neville Goddard. Now let's end it with this. Is you can have and do and be anything you want in this life. You can truly live life on your terms. You can truly live life unapologetically on your terms. You just have to choose and stick to it and not give up. That's the secret to all this. What you choose to be has to be shown to you, has to come to you. But other than that, I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.